finally stumbled into working in solar energy after meeting two circus girls on the beach in Ecuador. Now, he is a NABCEP PV Associate who worked in solar sales, installation, and marketing. He's researched and written on federal clean energy policies and has served as a source on the U.S. solar market for several major publications, including Business Insider, USA Today, Consumer Affairs, and also NerdWallet. His writing has appeared in Solar Today, PV Tech, and Solar Power World. He's a pretty typical Colorado guy, so he divides his time kind of roughly between hammering away at his laptop keyboard and covering himself in dirt in the backcountry. Stay tuned for my interesting conversation with Aaron Nichols of Exact Solar. Welcome to the What's Up Solar podcast. I'm your host, Emmitt Muckles, where solar energy meets real-world insights. And as the solar educator, trainer, and your go-to source for cutting through the noise, this is where you come. Each episode, we shine the light on people, tech, trends, powering the clean energy future, or just what's going on in the solar sphere. From hands-on installation to stories and breakthrough innovations and just interesting people, you're in the right place. Today, this is actually so cool. You heard from the introduction. Alex is on the line. No, I didn't say. I said Alex. See, I've screwed up. Aaron is on the line. Wait a minute, let me get it right. Double Aaron.
Yeah.
It's double Aaron.
It is.
We were just talking. It's Friday, and we were going through some things. So I'm going to leave that in. So just so people know, it's Friday, people, when we're recording this, and we feel great because we're alive.
By the way, that Key and Peele substitute teacher sketch just ruined my life.
You know, it's funny because they just brought that out of a culture. Because one thing about minority cultures in America, minority cultures show you love by roasting the shit out of you.
Nice.
So if you walk into a room and they are not roasting you, they don't want to be bothered with you. If you're sitting in a room,
I feel similarly in my own life.
Right? If you walk into a room, you're sitting there and everybody's like, "Hey, how are you?" And they walk by and you're like, "Hey, Charlie, God, your head's big." They love him.
Totally. Yeah.
No, man.
Yeah. You got to be worried when they stop making fun of you.
It's great to have you. You and I have a common friend. He's like Kevin Bacon. That's Nico Johnson.
Yeah.
And Suncast Media. I have great respect for them. And actually, Nico was the impetus for me starting this podcast. He was like, "Emmitt, what's going on? Why are you just sitting there?" And you reached out to me because how did I come up in your conversation?
It was actually Carlos Lundy. I saw a post from him that you had started a new podcast. And I didn't know anything about you. And, we're like 3 minutes in now, and I'm already so excited because there's so many industry podcasts and they're all so polished and professional, and I'm just ready to have fun. This looks great.
Sometimes you got to read the room. That's what it says. You have to read the room. Some of my podcasts are going to be, welcome to the evening news. And we're going to talk about Sunspec Policies 101. And other times it's like, hey, I read the room. We have similar spiritual connections to the universe. So I was like, if that is true from what I've heard, we just gonna have some fun. We're gonna put our money on the table and we're gonna put it all on black.
Let's do it. I'm so excited. Where do we want to start?
Well, how did you get into solar? Because solar is not solar is one of those things that you listen to people's stories. They either were destitute and that was the only job they could get. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, totally.
Or somebody was like one of their friends was like, "Yo, man, you should come try this." That's what happened to me. Someone was like, "I need you over here." And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
It's like, "I need you." So
I
how?
started in solar the way that most people start in solar, which is I was in Ecuador learning to surf, and I met two circus girls on the beach who roped me into door-to-door sales.
Oh, that sounds like a story. Yeah, I was at the beach in Ecuador and met two girls who wrote me in. What?
Yeah. I was so after COVID, I had spent a year as a teacher, and after that year, I was the most miserable I've ever been in my life. And so I had some money saved. I was very lucky. I invested well when the market crashed at the beginning of COVID, and I had enough to travel for 2 years
Oh,
because
that's dope.
previously I had been evacuated from Peace Corps. So, I was just in such a crisis because like I was Peace Corps in Nepal. I made it 7 weeks. We got evacuated because COVID started. I
Oh,
got back
okay.
home and I had sold everything. I had nothing left. And so I took a teaching job I had turned down to go to Nepal. Spent a year doing that, teaching during COVID. It was the most chaotic, ridiculous thing I've ever done. And at the end of that, I was miserable. And so I went
Yeah.
traveling for 2 years. And the whole point of that trip was just to learn different movements. So I did like yoga teacher trainings and I did like horseback riding and circus arts. And I fell in love with learning to surf. And I was about a year into that when I was in Ecuador in this. I fell in love with Ecuador. I spent 6 months in the country, but I
Wait,
was
wait, where were you in Ecuador? Because Ecuador has this thing that I want to hit because
Mhm.
Ecuador is close to Antarctica, right?
You're thinking Argentina.
Yeah, I'm thinking down. I just want to
Yeah,
I
you
just
are.
want to see the universe from that perspective. I want to look up in dark sky and see the universe from that perspective.
Dude, totally. And I mean, I spent my 20s just traveling. And there's so many tips and tricks I can give you. But one I've heard is that if you go to where those Antarctic ships launch and you stay there for a couple weeks, there's always voyages to Antarctica that aren't at full capacity, and you can get discount trips as long as you're staying down
No,
there,
man,
like at
because
the point
those
of Antarctica.
no, because I'm going to hit the ice wall. They're going to take me back home. They'll be like, Emmitt, you've been here too long. We've been looking for
All right. So anyway, I'm in Ecuador. I've fallen in love with learning to surf. And I'm in this beach town that I was just obsessed with that I got stuck in for months. And I met these two girls who described themselves as circus girls. And the way that they funded their lifestyle, which was their lifestyle was literally like knock doors for solar, make as much money as you could, and then spend as much time out of the country as they could doing circus arts wherever they were. They were fire spinners, they were like very
yeah,
into handstands and acrobatics. And spend as much time as you can outside of the country. When you run out of money, come back, knock more doors. And the company they were working for did what they called blitz trips, where they would
yeah.
fly us in. Yeah. And so my intro to the solar world was just lying to homeowners with a very dishonest script with a company that, I was so naive at that point. I didn't understand how inaccurate the things we were saying were. They
You
just gave
were a
me a
solar
script and
bro.
I was a solar bro. Yeah. And so the rest of my career has been penance for that sin.
Oh, my. You know, it's um on a serious note, we've been
Yeah,
kind of lighthearted about things, but that's one of my that's the thing I've taken to heart. And I'm not saying it was bad for you. I just realized solar is so new to this country and to a lot of parts of the world, especially in industrialized nations. It's not like a car. Everybody knows what a car does, about how much they cost, what you have to invest.
totally.
There's such a myth that's been around solar that people can be taken advantage of. So, once again, here's a shameless plug. I've created solar energy for consumers, a course for consumers to actually get knowledge before they adopt solar. Now we're going to segue back out of that. That's how that ties together, though, because
Mhm.
I've worked in, and I've said this on a couple of other episodes, I've worked in support, worked in training, and invariably in tech support, you're going to get a homeowner who goes, well, the salesman told me, and that's all I need to hear because they didn't read the contract.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a four-part series written by a woman in Time magazine that I go back to all the time. It's by a woman named Alana Samuels. and she really kind of talks about like the rise and fall of national door-to-door solar sales and just
Yeah.
some of the very scammy practices that happened, and the fact that like some homeowners got signed up for loans thinking they were on government programs, and it wasn't until their installer went out of business and there was no one to service their system that they realized they were on a loan,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah. Because the loans are not cheap.
Yeah,
American PV systems, they're like, especially like a couple of years ago, they were like $4, $5, $7 a watt. Still, once you factor in the loan and the lifetime loan and the term of the loan.
totally.
So
Yeah, and that's, I mean, we're fighting such a tide of disinformation because of the easy money door-to-door era. And we're out of it now. It's not as easy, but we still have to fight an uphill battle. And that's, why we work so hard to create good educational content at Exact.
So what's your penance? So what
Yeah. Oh, it gets better.
so did you have one of those moments in the desert
Mhm.
that something came down to you and said, "This is your mission"?
I really did. And that's what's so interesting is, dude, I spent 4.5 years out of my 20s, or out of the country in my 20s. Sorry.
Right?
So I was, yeah, I fell in love with travel when I was 21, and it was all I wanted to do. And I spent so much time in what you would consider, quote unquote, the developing world, just looking at trash that doesn't go anywhere, because there's all these beautiful beaches and all these beautiful landmarks, and we live in this incredibly privileged place where when we have trash, we just put it in a can and someone just
Yes.
takes it away and we don't have to look at it. And I was looking at all of these beautiful bays and beaches and mountains that were just covered with trash that will be there for the next century, that is never going to go anywhere. And no one has a plan for doing anything with. And that's what started me thinking, because I was always in education and nonprofits before I wound up in solar. And that's what got me thinking, like, I really want to do something to impact the world, but I don't want to be broke doing it. And so it was shortly before I had met those circus girls that I had decided I wanted to get into renewables.
Okay.
And then I applied for a bunch of jobs, was completely rejected. That's a whole other thing that it's my rant about recruiting that I could give
Oh,
you. But
don't get me started.
yeah, it was shortly before that I realized I wanted a purposeful life and I wanted to work in renewables. And the circus girls are really just where the story starts. The door to door was the very beginning of something for me, because after that I went to Asia and I finished the rest of that 2 years of travel. And it was at the end of that time, I was in Bali. I was thinking about, what the hell am I going to do? I'm out of money. And I found a 6-week installer training through Grid Alternatives. I came home,
Nice.
I completed that. I started dating a woman who was a little older than me. It gets important later in the story. Right after I finished that training, I went and worked in Alaska for a summer, doing nothing to do with solar. And then I came back, and that woman was putting a lot of pressure on me to get to her income level really fast. And so I couldn't just be an installer. And so I started copywriting. And because I was NABCEP certified, I naturally kind of just kept finding solar clients because I knew stuff about the technical side of things.
Yeah.
And I was able to market. And then I've slowly just kind of built a presence on LinkedIn, and more clients found me. And then Exact found me on Upwork, and they asked me to come on full time in July. So that's the journey.
Yeah, but let's go back. So your girlfriend said you got to level up.
Mm-hmm. That's
You're
right.
like, so this is so important because in men's lives, and this is
Mm-hmm.
historic. I'm an OG. So in men's lives, and I was telling my daughter this, I'm like, we do everything for women. If it wasn't for women, we would be clubbing each other over the head and falling out of trees and not taking showers. This is facts. She was like, Daddy,
Have you ever seen those memes that are just like a mattress on the floor and an Xbox and a TV in an empty room? And it's like, she
yes,
saved my life, bro.
I would be sitting there with a guitar and a bow and arrow. That would be my life. Uh,
That's so
no,
true.
no, but these are some pivotal moments. These are the things that you take away from podcast. It's not the overt things, it's the subtle things about life that you can take away from podcasts, for younger people and for older people to meet in the middle, Um, there's a big issue in this industry. One is talent. And there are a lot of people with great talent who don't know about the solar industry. They don't know that, we need electricians, we need carpenters, we need permitting people, we need surveyors, we need drone pilots, we need a lot of things. But there's a missing component of trying to get talent. How do these owners keep missing like great talent?
Yeah, this is this is such a soapbox for me because in 2 years, I've managed to develop a bit of an online presence. There's people who are starting to notice what I do. I've built a local green drinks chapter where people come to learn about solar. That we've built an online news channel where people come to learn. We've like ranked for a bunch of keywords for SEO in our local area. There's so much that I've driven for Exact that I'm very proud of and that I, consider myself talented at. And every time I accomplish one of those things, I think of just the job interviews that I went through, where I went through all these pointless interviews and went through so many rounds of interviews and just got completely passed over because I had spent time traveling instead of just doing what I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a quote I love by Rory Sutherland, which is when everyone's playing by the same rules, he's talking about recruiting. He says, when everyone's playing by the same rules, the same boring bastards win every time. And modern recruiting is designed to find people who are good at doing what they're told. It's not very good at finding innovators. Innovators and disruptors are forced to go out on their own and find their own way, which is what I had to do. And I'm not bitter about it because it taught me so much. But I am frustrated to think about how many people aren't like me that don't enjoy being in the public sphere and wouldn't have posted on LinkedIn, but are still probably so good at something that just get missed because they don't have the right, they haven't just sat in a job they hated for long enough that someone could notice them. That like there's so many people who have lived intense lives and because of that have experience that could help a company that are passed over because it's a gap on the resume. That drives me insane.
Well, there's a couple of things here to unpack. So, and I was thinking about this recently as I was on a walk with the Heidi. Heidi's my dog.
Amazing.
I'm Heidi's manservant. I was on the walk with the Heidi, and Heidi was like sniffing a tree or something, and I was having a moment of clarity. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, money is the thing that keeps us from really developing a talent unless it's a desperate situation.
Mm-hmm.
In a desperate situation, you're going to say, okay, I can do this thing here. How can I make some money so I can sustain my life doing this thing here?
Right.
I did that with music. I was playing music and I was like, how can I make money? I enjoy music. And a friend of mine was like, you should be a DJ. I was like, cool. I made so much money as a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing as a musician, right? So it's just framing your mindset about things. But and in today's culture, people are so driven. If you look at any social media for anybody who is under the age of 30, who is ingrained and indoctrinated in that platform, it's six figure, make a six figure. It's like, you really don't need that much if you play the game right. You just need to live.
It's true, man. I mean, I'm very involved in like the fire movement and the early retirement community. I don't know if you've ever fallen down that rabbit hole, but there's,
No.
like I the co-working space I go to is owned by a man whose online name is Mr. Money Mustache, and he
Oh,
and his
yeah, yeah,
wife,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You know
Yeah,
Mr. Money Mustache?
I do. He helped me build that shower I was telling you about.
I've been following him for like years. I didn't realize what
Hmm.
you were saying. Yes,
Yeah,
I've been following him for years, but you know, I had kids at a young age, so I had to feed those little monsters.
totally. Yeah.
You
But
know,
yeah, I mean, just, like you were saying, just reduce waste, reduce financial waste. You don't need to take out loans to get cars you can't afford.
that that was
Yeah.
the thing that sunk me in the hole early in the game.
Mm,
Car notes. A car note is $800 now. That's what
yeah,
a house payment used to be.
totally.
I,
Yeah.
that freaks me out.
Mm,
Um, you know, we're getting off, so we're actually just chilling and having a conversation. Like
yeah.
all we need is like a beer, like holding between.
Totally.
You know, but
Yeah.
you were in solar. You worked on the roof, boots on the roof,
Hmm.
getting that done.
Hmm.
What would you tell somebody? Because what would you tell somebody who wants to get in? Because most of the decent jobs that I've had came from a referral. Like, hey, I know
Sure.
this guy Emmett who can do this thing, and they ushered me right in. I
Yeah,
would say 90% of the jobs where I was hired, it was ushered in.
totally.
The
I would
ones,
say if you want to break into something, especially remote or online, just get comfortable with gig work. Just start there. Start on a platform like Upwork and get comfortable with the fact that you might not have a job right away. There's
hmm,
so much work, there's not a lot of online jobs. And then you can, a platform like LinkedIn where you can be visible helps, but it's going to be very slow. But it was because of posting on LinkedIn that Nico found me and
oh,
put me in a WhatsApp group of returned Peace Corps volunteers. And I got some work from that and got to work with some major companies in the industry. And then Nico eventually brought me on as his editor of content.
now this coincides with my theory. So I've been a trainer in the solar industry since 2010,
Hmm.
working for major companies. But there's not as much of a value add companies think with training.
Hmm.
So I started thinking of training in a fractional sense. Like, you don't need to hire me. Don't hire me as an employee. 1099 versus W2. Give me a 1099. Give me what you need me to get done and give me a time frame so I can get this done, move on to the next 1099.
Totally.
And if you ever need me again, you know, you can hit me up, you can call me and we can do a new project. But I
Yeah.
think and and that's just bringing the gig economy to solar
Hmm.
from my perspective. And that same perspective can be done, as you're saying, for any of these aspects.
Absolutely. And you can charge a lot more for short-term gig work as well. If you get good and you have a reputation, you can charge way more than you can ask for at a job because you're solving a short-term problem
Yeah.
immediately.
And that's one of the things that I start off with because one thing I really love people. I love to help and I love to solve problems and I love to be in the know. I like to have the answers. I like to solve your
Mhm.
problems. The first thing I ask is, what problem can I help you solve? Or what problem are you having? Because I might be one I don't want to help you with. And be like, you're
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
But I think you're onto something that people should adopt this mindset of doing what you know how to do and understanding how to adapt your life for that versus I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get a house in the burbs. I'm going to have
Yeah.
2.1 kids. Do you get angry when you reminisce about going to those interviews, though?
I definitely do. And I think that's also like contract to hire, you're so much more likely to get a job now than you are with going through the job process, especially going in blind. And you're going to waste a lot less time and energy. And I think that's an important distinction because there's so many people talking about how hard it is to find a job nowadays. But if you get good at solving one problem and you can just solve that problem in one industry, people are going to notice you and they're going to ask you if you can solve other problems. And that's
Yes.
when you say, yeah, this dude, one of my favorite moments I had was Someone asked me if I could write a nurture sequence. This was about 2 years ago when I was first just starting all of this. And I got the gig on Upwork and I said yes. And I went through the whole interview and I was like, you'll have it by tomorrow. And then I got on Google and I was like, what is a nurture sequence?
Well, you got ChatGPT now.
You do, yeah. And they were happy with it because I poured my heart into it. But people like the thing that I think people miss is that freelancing and 1099 work is like getting paid to go to business school because you're going to get good at solving one problem and then you're going to solve that problem for a bunch of different people and you're going to solve it well enough that they're going to ask you if you can solve other problems and then you're going to have to go learn and it's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard and stressful and you're going to be anxious and then one day you're going to realize you have a bunch of useful skills and that you're in demand.
You know, it's weird because I was looking at it from a different point of view because I learned at a very young age to invest in myself coming up in Detroit because I was an only child. Yes, people believe that I was an only child.
I'm the oldest of five. I have no clue what that's like.
But you have nobody to depend on, so you got to figure some stuff out. I learned that the library could teach me a lot of stuff, how to get things done.
Awesome.
But I've kept that in my life. So remember I told you I was building stuff. When COVID happened, I looked at my wife and I said, you can have one of three things. You can have a CNC machine, a laser cutter, or 3D printer. She was on the laser cutter. We get the laser cutter, learn how to operate that. And she goes, you should get a CNC machine because we can make these things and then I can engrave them. But that led me to, okay, I got to go get a bandsaw. I got to go get this. And you learn how to use these things. It's investing in yourself. And it's kind of what you're saying. You start off with something, just go down a road and it's going to take you somewhere you didn't expect, but it's going to be fruitful.
Yeah. And that's something that I harp on so much is you always have choices, but you're probably going to hate them in the beginning because it's not going to feel like choice. It's going to feel like suffering. Like that relationship was so wrong for me. The one I mentioned earlier with the older woman who wanted me to get to her income level, it was so wrong and it fell apart very shortly after that. And I still wasn't good enough to completely support myself financially. And so what I did was I signed up for trustedhousesitters.com and I just did free pet sits, but lined them up back to back to back to back. I did 7 in a row for 2.5 months. So by the end of that, I was making a full-time living. But that felt awful. It felt awful and it didn't feel like a choice I wanted to make. But you always have choices. They just might really suck.
What do you think about the level of the human firmware programming of perceived comfort normality? What I mean by that, we think what we are experiencing is the norm. Globally, it is not the norm.
Exactly. Yeah. This is something that, again, is another huge soapbox for me. And I think I'm the right person to ask because I went to 30 countries before I turned 30.
Exactly.
And I spent time in the Peace Corps. I spent time volunteering at dog rescues in Thailand. And we are absurdly lucky. But the human mind sees whatever is in front of it, and that's normal, And so we have more choice than anyone has ever had in the history of anything, and we hate it because it just makes us so miserable. And we spend all this time wondering if we're going to make the right choice and wondering if we're happy. And you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
We have our basic needs met, and we then use our extra time to sit around making ourselves miserable. But dude, I think so much about there was a Ukrainian woman I met when I was in Madeira with my brother. She was on vacation. She was a teacher in Spain, and she lived in Spain because she was fleeing the war. She was wonderful, like so kind and funny. And she told me and my brother that on her 30th birthday, which was about 2 years before I met her, she had this big party planned and she was in Kiev and she invited everyone she loved. And the war broke out the day before. And she
Oh,
spent her birthday on a train, standing for 48 hours, trying to get out of Ukraine because they'd just been invaded.
yeah.
And I think about things like that so much, man. Like, because I spend so much time, just like everyone else, complaining about traffic and about like, because it creeps in, it gets in your reality. And
Yeah,
it's
it
so hard
does.
to remind yourself how lucky you are. But it is, yeah, it's something very important to think about. And it's something a lot of people don't like to be reminded of because we are obviously very stressed and this is our reality. And also, we have it really good. Like I'm sitting here talking about how to choose to make enough money to live a decent American lifestyle.
And the operative word is American lifestyle.
Right. And there's so much choice and
There,
there's so many ways you could do it. But
it's
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 just like, yeah.
it's all about programming. It's all about, I think we're getting away from, to a certain aspect, the Joneses, keeping
Mhm.
up with them. I
Yeah,
think we've seen that the Joneses had a dysfunctional house once they closed the door. And
totally.
we don't want to be like the Joneses. We need to
Yeah.
find another model to go after. Yeah. One thing I was thinking about is I have an off-grid array that runs my garage that I have all
Hmm.
my tools and stuff in that I was building that thing and I was telling you about earlier before we started the podcast and other things.
Hmm.
I also have an anchor. I have an EcoFlow that runs like this office. This is running off of an EcoFlow, my whole set.
Amazing. Oh, we talk that all day.
But solar, for some odd reason, they can't get the story right to where people go, ah,
Hmm.
really? Why is that? I mean, you're a writer. That's why I'm asking.
Hmm. Yeah. I consider this my mission now. And I just gave a talk about this actually for Switch, Colorado, which I was very lucky to do. But my mission is now to make solar sexy. And it's a big enough problem that I'm going to spend probably the rest of my life doing it. I think in any industry that sells very technical products, you have an echo chamber where the technical people are the most valued. And so they're the ones who kind of set the public perception, and the
Yeah.
marketing people aren't strong enough to tell them that that's dumb. And there's the point of the talk that I gave was humans are wired for stories. And there's so much research to back this up. If you show someone statistics and you show them stories, like or you tell them a story is what I mean. The reason that we think that we place so much weight on statistics and facts and studies is because in the moment people will say that those move their perceptions about the same amount. But if you look over time, if you ask them a week later, the story stuck, the facts are gone.
Yeah. I agree because
Yeah.
I try to wrap trainings with stories and
Hmm.
examples because that's
Yeah,
how we live. Because facts don't paint pictures,
they don't.
stories do.
Yeah.
Stories, we think typically in pictures.
Hmm.
And I remember KRS-One did a talk and he asked the crowd, he held up a picture of something and it had a name on it. And he said, say this aloud in your head. Don't say it with your lips. Don't verbalize it. And he says, now, when you said this word, you saw it, you heard yourself actually say it, but what was that?
Hmm.
So when we can involve those senses, storytelling does that.
It's
And
true. Yeah.
here's who I think did it the best so far. And this is hurt me. EcoFlow.
Hmm.
They took something that was not even a thing. They marketed it so great, or maybe it was just in my algorithm so hard
Yeah,
that you were like, what is this thing? You mean I can plug a solar panel into it when I'm off in the woods and I can have drip coffee maker running
totally.
and I can plug it into my lighter? And
Yeah,
what is a solar generator? I didn't hear the word. I never knew what a solar generator, heard the term prior to like 2023,
yeah.
2022.
Mhm. We have so much to learn from the off-grid community. I talk about this all the time too, because they've done such a good job making it sexy.
Yeah.
And that when we think about like people that are in our customer base who have gone solar, who identify as more conservative, more Republican, it's the independence that they want. It's the ability to detach. It's the ability to have power for your family when you're in a crisis. That's the kind of stuff that moves the needle for those people. And solar right now is doing a decent job of moving out of the echo chamber of the environmental movement. But I think I'm going to get political for a second.
Go for it.
The solar industry's problem, as I see it, is close to the problem of the Democrats in that, like, they're so much more inclined to lean on like facts and statistics and try to like pick each other apart.
Yep.
Where when you look at like more conservative messaging, it's generally more fear-based. It's usually very simple. It's usually grounded in stories. Windmills cause cancer. You're not going to forget that. But then we have this little echo chamber where we just keep putting out studies that only we read. And then
Yeah.
like translating those to the public is the work. And it's what we're not good at yet. And I think there's residential's getting better at it because they're the ones who are beholden to the public. Commercial is getting okay. Utility scale is pretty bad at it. But I think we're getting better right now because we're being forced to, which I'm very thankful for, because obviously we have this crisis and it's scary, but we're being forced to get better at talking to the public instead of just being like, here's another study.
Okay. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can only tell you what's worked for us, and that's leaning on emotional stories. There's so many details that we've interviewed our customer base on that have gotten us into more major publications. One of my favorites was that there's an older man who went solar a couple of years ago that we did an installation for, and he told us that he loves the Enphase app because his 4-year-old granddaughter loves the colors, and then he can show her the progression of what he could teach her about clean energy with that. But the story that did the best for us was a story of a charter school. It's now called CHP. It was called Aspiro when we did the installation. And we built a off-grid solar and battery system. It's a ground-mounted system. It powers a greenhouse. The greenhouse has a hydroponic gardening system in it. And the greenhouse grows organic produce that students grow using this system. They eat what they can. They prepare food for staff and parents in an on-site restaurant, and then they sell what they can't eat at a farmer's market like every couple months. That's a story. I mean, it's got everything you need, and it's in inner city Philadelphia, relatively close to Kensington, and it's a food desert, so there's no grocery stores.
I know about those.
Yeah, and so all of that, we hammered that story, and we had this huge ribbon cutting that got us so much press coverage, got us in the local NPR chapter. Our local congressman came to speak, like the national congressman, not the state representative. And it got us into the local NPR chapter. And then they liked that story so much that it got us a relationship with a reporter. And that got us into a national NPR story. And then that story was picked up all over the country, and it boosted the crap out of our backlink profile. And we started ranking more and more for local traffic. So this stuff works, but you've got to get away from the technical. No one cares how many panels or what brand or the amount of electricity it puts out, or like no one cares how much power it puts out with what technology. The story is, here's what it powers, here's why you should care.
I think I think that there's a couple of people that I said I need to introduce or ask if he knows.
Mhm.
Adam Powers over in Washington.
No.
I think he runs the Solar Punk Festival.
Okay, I'm in.
So look him up and tell him Emmitt
Yeah.
sent you. Kate Collerton.
Yeah.
Do you know Kate Collerton? She lives in.
Mm-mm.
So Kate's name popped into my head when you were talking about how trash is just here. Because she's the one who brought this to me, this very same story at a NABCEP. She was like, Emmitt, here's what I'm going to. She was like, I'm going to tell you a story. She was like, I'm on an island. And I live on this island, me and a few other people. Like every other day, I go to this other side of the island and I dump my trash. She's like, then I go back to where I kind of hang out. And she's like, but every time I go back to dump trash, the old trash is gone. She's like, that's what we live in. She's like, but the
Mhm.
world doesn't.
It's true.
She
Yeah.
was like, and where does the trash go? What's going
Yeah.
on with it? So that's what made me think about that with you two are in proximity with each other and probably have some things in common. And
Yeah.
so, how are you going to replicate this? How are you going to influence? Because you're in one area, Denver. Denver is kind of solar friendly.
Yeah. And I work for a company in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So, how is that? How can I help you?
Oh, thanks, man. I don't know. I We just started our own solar news channel. I think one thing that I'm hoping to be able to do in the future is train thought leaders. And I would have to do that on such a part-time basis because I'm full-time at Exact and I love my job. But I think we need less people sharing studies that no one reads. And we need more people sharing what they believe as passionately and simply as possible. And so I'm just hoping one day to be able to train thought leaders who can then put information out on their own LinkedIn, or who, when they show up to a talk, aren't super technical and don't just have like a death by bullet point slide deck, but actually have one main idea that gets across.
But
Like that's
here, here's what I think because I've had enough kids. Don't judge me.
I'm hoping to have some of my
My
own
kids,
soon.
no, my kids span some years, dude.
Okay.
But here's the thing about them. If you want to know what's going to be important, hot, in the now, look at what a 13 to 15-year-old is interested
Mhm.
in 5 to 10 years, whatever they were interested in is going to be the norm. Whatever you can get them interested in will be the norm. This is why I'm saying this about if we can make it sexy for them at 13 to 15 now, in 10 years, that's the new norm.
That's funny you say that, 'cause I was just talking to somebody about how like I feel like the messaging of the solar industry to young people is like the messaging of the DARE program. It's just like so cringy and out of touch with what, yeah, it's like solar's dope, dude.
Yeah. But the thing about it is, it's not, most industry, like I said, I still have a teenager at home. So
Yeah.
I look how they vibe, look,
Mhm.
they're, and each generation is different. Like they have different, I can't explain it except for like the vampire Lestat, why he
Mhm.
um, chose someone who was much younger so he could understand the time. If your kids will help you understand the time you're in because your time has passed.
Yeah,
But that's who the influence needs to be. And yeah, I just want to know how I can help you.
totally. Yeah. I don't know yet because,
That's
but I think
that's a
this
good answer.
this is helping. This like I go on as many podcasts as I can because I do think we have a messaging problem and we have a story problem, and you giving me a platform to explain what I believe to people is how you can help me. I also think we need to lean as hard as we can on independence. I think that's why the off-grid solar market does so well
Yeah,
and
comfort.
why they're marketing. Yeah, it's like there's only a certain amount of people who actually care about the environment. But there's when you're like you're going to have backup power during a storm, your family's going to be taken care of. You can go off grid if you need to. Like, dude, I have a 200-watt rich solar panel, a battery bank I got from some Chinese company I've never heard of, and I just ordered a Starlink. I can go work in the woods now.
Yeah.
And I'm a Colorado boy. That means the world to me. I can take my Tacoma and I can drive it off grid and I could stay in the woods for days. That's awesome. That's what I love about solar.
Make sure you have a bear gun though.
Dude, you Midwesterners, every time I talk about going to the woods, you can bring up bears.
No, so I got a story for you, and then we're gonna wrap this up because you're just kicking it. My wife and I are in California, somewhere between Las Vegas and San Diego. We're going to visit our kid, right? And I was doing some training in Vegas, so I was like, "You fly with me. We'll hang out there, and then we'll drive over." So we hit a traffic jam, and she says, "Hey, there's a hot spring that's like 5 miles that way, and then like a 2 mile hike." I'm like, "Cool, let's hit it." She's not from America, so we're walking in the desert, and we get like a mile and a half, and I go, there's very big cats that like to eat young women." I was like, "There's leopards and there's cougars and there's lynxes out here." She was like, "Really?" She was like, "Now you tell me this?" I was like, "Nah, I don't even know." I was like, "I was just thinking about the hills have eyes. What do I know?" I'm like that. I play jokes, but
Yeah. I have spent my life in the woods, so don't worry about me.
You've never seen a bear.
I've seen a bear, and it was okay. It was fine.
What was he smoking? A cigarette like a Newport or something? Like, hey,
No, man, I was sitting up on a ridge with my best friend. The sun was coming up, and we had binoculars, and we were watching a little bear family down in the back.
Okay. All right.
Amazing.
I'll take that. But I've seen a bear live. I've been like 10 feet from a bear. There was a barrier between it. But that thing, I seen what it did to Leonardo DiCaprio. No.
Totally.
It tore Leo.
You Midwest people are ridiculous.
Yes, we are. All we have to worry about is tornadoes. And you can see them clearly coming.
Yeah. This is an argument I got in all the time when I lived in Australia. It was like they thought our wildlife was scarier than theirs, and I thought theirs was scarier than ours, and we would just fight for hours.
Yeah, they got things that different from a different planet. Anyway, hey man, look, let's do this again.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
we just hit this. It's Friday. We're recording this on. I usually don't like to date podcasts with. Life is good.
Yeah.
Because I'm breathing.
I will come back anytime. I've had so much fun, man.
Well, where can people find you?
LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn. And we just started.
That's. It's not like you have a very unique name. Is there any?
This is true. Yeah. If you Google Aaron Nichols Solar, I promise you I'm the first LinkedIn that comes up. I've tried.
Yeah, I had to give him something.
We just started a weekly news roundup that I'm hosting. Exact Solar.
Okay.
So we had an old YouTube channel that we've repurposed for this, and we're running it on Substack. So if you look up This Week in Solar, you can find it on YouTube or Substack. We got tired of having to sift through 85,000 different publications to find relevant industry news. So I'm the filter. I put out what I believe are the biggest stories in solar energy once a week. It's 5 minutes or less, me explaining it in a video with a very short roundup written down under it.
You need a segment that says Ask Emmitt.
Okay.
You need a segment that says Ask Emmitt. Somebody will be like, "Hey, Emmitt, my light won't go on. Turn the switch."
Well, we're thinking of adding a podcast component. We're thinking of doing it short, like big ideas in 9 minutes or less. So if you want to come do that.
Dude, I'm not turning down anything but my collar. How's that?
All right, man.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Aaron, for being
Yeah.
on the show. Your energy, that's what I picked up on. And I want to thank you so much for participating, being available. It's such short notice. Let's do this again. Whenever you feel like it, just reach out to me. You got my Calendly link. If I just show up, be like, hey, double Aaron's back on the bell again. Let's get it going. We're going to make it happen.
Dude,
Ladies,
you're awesome. This is the most fun I've ever had on a podcast. Sorry, Nico.
that's because it's Friday and, you know, my honeydew list is getting long, and I have a graduation party to go to. So that means I'm just going to eat and drink for a whole day.
Nice. Dude, I think you're the voice the industry needs. I love it. I'm excited to listen to what's up.
Oh, cool. So you should come to one of my training. By the way, people, I will be at the Midwest Energy Expo in June. So come see my talk on commercial O&M. Woo! Fun times. I might bring my drone into the room and get put out of the place. Anyway.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Yeah. Remember, this is the place where you come to just understand some things that are going on in a non-biased way. Have a little fun, because life is not that serious, because there's some other things that are very serious about life that are happening. So remember, tune in, subscribe, go to the YouTube channel, WhatsApp Solar Podcast. Emmitt Muckles is that guy. And remember, the sun will never send you a bill. Till next time.
Muckles and Nichols.
That's dope. That's dope. That's gonna be the end, right?
Yeah. Perfect, man.
All right.